focused productivity app. We get the simulator here. We've got a very simple actions list right now. No navigation. No goals yet. Right now it's just a to-do list. You can edit. You can save it. You can add something new. But the problem is, as soon as you refresh the device, it reverts to the default state, so nothing's actually persisted. So I think a good challenge for today would be to try and persist this. A true product, I guess, that was in the wild people were paying for, you'd have a database. You'd have a backend service. They'd have an account. And it would automatically sync with that account. But in terms of just lean product development, I'm trying to get us to a point where we can have people using this product, whether through test flight or some other means of distributing it. But I know a few people that I've talked to about this and would be interested in demoing an early stage product. If we look at our package JSON, we've already installed React Native Community async storage. And I talked about that in our first video. But basically what this does is it provides an interface, an API via JavaScript to Android is using SQLite, a SQLite database. And on iOS, it's using the library application storage. I think it's actually, maintaining these key value stores in a file somehow. I haven't gone too deep into this, but you can see in this maybe it's not in this file. The Android file is, if we go in here, it's like the module package, maybe it's storage util. Just want to show you what is happening behind the scenes. Yeah, you can see these SQLite imports. React database supplier, that sounds like what I was thinking of. But basically, not to go too deep into this, but they're using SQLite for the Android stuff and for iOS, it's using the application support directory in the library directory, which they must be storing some sort of file in there. But it's the equivalent of using like local storage or session storage, an easy way to persist some key value stores for a project. So I figure, let's update our implementation before we get into refactoring. Let's get into persisting this. Last time I may have mentioned, it might make sense to lift some of this into the context API so it's usable for anywhere in the project. We could go into Redux, but I don't know. I'm less inclined to use Redux after previous experiences, especially with the new hooks API. I feel like it's a little easier to work with context, but I see the value in having a defined means of interacting with your data store. But maybe not right now. So I guess let's see. We've got the ability to set here. We're actually setting an ID. We're doing that in most of them. We're just overriding a specific value. When we're saving the title, flipping the edit mode and providing a new title. When we're toggling editing, we're just toggling that edit and completion. I made this a string. I think it really could be Boolean at this point. So I don't know if we can just jump right into using TypeScript, or if we have to do any setup. So it requires more than like a minute's worth of work. I'm going to save it for a different day. I probably should have just run this command. Let's see. Let's give this a try, because I like TypeScript. I don't know if I feel like going down the flow rabbit hole yet. Alright. Get our tsconfig in there. And we need a test config, which does not exist yet. Okay. Do the same thing. Yeah, there's plenty of good resources here for TypeScript in general, using TypeScript with React in general, a nice cheat sheet. These are good resources. And even this document is a good resource. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to save the async storage, and I'm going to include that in the description for this video. That we could save for another day. Don't need to do custom path aliases yet. But let's just see if do it on a simple component. Probably the most simple one. Does it work as a TypeScript file? It doesn't like the flow. Oh, yeah, okay, it doesn't like it in any of them. But you know what, I'm down for just getting rid of it for the time being. I'm a little confused as to what the syntax is. Am I like providing a default value there? Oh, that was the type. Okay. All right, so TypeScript is like, what's happening here? We can get rid of these types for now, because we're gonna improve these by using TypeScript later. And flow, maybe it's not so bad. I just don't want to learn it right now as I'm trying to like build this product. And we can just commit what we just did. All right, so that's good though. It's saying that the TypeScript is working. It wants us to define some sort of type for these props. That's fine. We don't need to fix it right now. In fact, we could just do a little bit of not the way that we want to do it, but duplicate identifier any type. Oh no, that's not the correct syntax. I say we just ignore it for the time being because I wanna do the async-storage stuff. Sometimes you gotta do coding that you enjoy. So I'm gonna create a directory because I feel like this is a service. It's gonna be a layer that we communicate with, that all reading and writing to async storage will take place in. We'll call it async storage service TypeScript. And this is just a TS versus a TSX file because we're not using JSX syntax in it. If we go into the docs, I've already done this like before I started recording any of these videos. If we look at the POP file, I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah, I mean the fact that we are on React Native 60 plus, it's already added. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's okay. But, we'll find out. Basically, there's auto-linking in newer versions of React Native that makes it a little more straightforward instead of having to deal with CocoaPod pod files. All right, so we've got, this pattern could get us most of the way here, most of the way there, I think. Export const. So I guess, when I picture the state for this, right now all we know is we've got this to-do list store. But there's going to be a goal store, there's going to be a review store at some point, but it's a little hazy as to what that's going to look like. So, I think, we might be able to say, keep it just to, let's keep it just to store for now, because that's the state that we do know about. And they are making a distinction here between a string and objects. I think we can make the assumption that these are purely objects. And yeah, just not store anything that's a plain string. We're dealing with more complex states than that. I kind of want to make an object for this. Export it this way. Take a brief pause. Good. Where I left off, I think I was making this object, which is going to contain a couple of these functions. I like this syntax because you'd be able to import it and use it this way. And that just looks nice to me. Like it's easy to use. Function that does this. Try catch. And we're going to have our constant, which we are using TypeScript now. I think we could say something like storage keys. Maybe. You could say like to do list. And they all follow the syntax of an @ symbol. So you could say or is it equal? There we go. So we could use this, expand upon this, and it has nice typing built into it. And right now, it's just going to be that coupled with the value. And we're storing the objects, so we're going to try and stringify it. That's one thing we do need to do is serialize and deserialize. Basically, take a JSON object, make it into a string, when we store it, and then when we read it, we need to parse it out of being a string back into an object. Just because it's crossing the bridge, from React Native JavaScript land into native code. So I believe that has to happen anyway, so this might be intentional just to improve performance for the library. Yeah, so we just need to stringify the value. And we store that. And then handle error, which we would do something, but not quite clear what it is yet. It's pretty general. It's an object, we don't know what's going to be in that object, so this is going to be pretty open-ended typing. So we could do something very similar for get data. So that. this returns void. It's a promise that returns void because we are awaiting the promise of setting. This is going to return an object with a promise that resolves to an object. So what we need to do is parse it. We can say if value does not equal null, then JSON parse value, otherwise returns value. I guess it's equivalent if you're returning the value, which would have been null. Yeah, and we would do something with the error here. Not sure if that's necessary. This lacking an ending return statement. The return type does not include undefined. Unable to read I thought we'd be able to provide more than one argument to this, but I guess not. Good enough. I mean, it resolves the typing. Interestingly, it accepts that, but I think that's okay. Get rid of these. Got this async storage service object. Eventually, we may want to be able to, we will be able to want to store by key. And that's okay. We can handle that later. I think what we do want to do is I'm just trying to think if we want to encapsulate. I guess this is the layer that communicates with async storage. So we would want to set data by ID. Something like that. We say if no matter if it says the responsibility for this. That. We could say current data, so we'd have to read it. It could get trickier. I'm almost of the opinion that we hold off on doing this until there's more of an explicit use case for it and allow the logic to exist in whatever components we're using it in for now. But this is just a basic store and get of the whole to-do list. If we go, I think the only place that we're actually interacting and reading and writing from state is this action input component. So I'm just trying to think how this will work. Like, do we have a version of component state that exists? Or do we have like a container component that's always reading the latest state? Not the most straightforward. And then we have two different sources of truth. For the to-do list state, action list state. I guess we could like set it, read it, and then use the red value to update the component state. I think that makes the most sense for now. I mean, the most immediate goal is we just want to persist some of this data beyond a refresh. So we can call it like initial, this is a separate thing, initial action. I'm realizing we can just separate this out a little bit. And then I believe there's like a React use state hook function to determine the initial state. I find the example of it. It might not be in stock. No, it's not in stock. Might be in this one. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. So, an initial state that we can check whether or not there is anything in store or in async storage. So what that looks like? A function. It's going to return. I think, we could check async storage service, get data. Persisted data, whatever. Async storage service, get data. I wonder if this can be asynchronous. We do need to wait for this to complete. So in possible values of this once it resolves is either, basically if it's null, we know we want to use the initial action here. So we can say if that equals null and return initial actions. In all cases, we want to use the persisted data. That's cool. Provided our initial state, and now we just need to store data in async storage so that we know it's working. We could do it in the add action. We need this still. As the object. And we provide that to store data. I guess let's just see what that looks like. Store data. And just provide the object. Actually, we'd be providing actions, actual ID, new action. This becomes an async function. So we await this promise and return anything. Seems a little cumbersome. Because then we would say persisted data equals await the result of stored service get data. And we could just use that to overwrite our actions. But it's like store, get, set. It's probably a better way to do that. Retitle null. What's happening here? I'm not sure. This is from action item. And the title not actually having an action. Well, if we debug this, maybe we can see what's happening. is 0. That's going to be problematic. Actions. Working the way that I would hope. Maybe this doesn't like it being a promise. Not very helpful. Seems like it's not doing this the way we would expect. Two use state type definitions. Both of them return state and a dispatcher set state. This one sets an initial state. Return state or function return state. Doesn't seem like it likes the promise. Maybe. Find a use effect that uses async. Yeah, okay. I think that's the way to do it. Just provide an empty object for the time being. We're going to do use effect on initial render. null, return persistent data, otherwise return null. We'll call fetch data. And we actually say or overwrite that action. That's one of these two. I think that's preferable. Either. Undefined. Or no. Object. Null. Null. Becoming null because there's nothing. Let's see. What's happening is it could be null in the case that getting the data returns null. In which case we could actually return initial actions. Alright. That's working somewhat. Now if we try adding an action, alright, so we added this action. It should have stored it in the async storage. It should have then got the data from that and reset that state. So if we actually refresh, I think this should work. Nice. I think there's a lot of work to do. This is not pretty implementation. Store, get, store, which we would have to repeat in all these other places. But the action list is capable of being persisted now. I think next time we'll work on converting the rest of these handlers to use these methods and try and improve the implementation so that it's not as clunky. But yeah, we accomplished a mini feature today.